Subaru's throat froze when he saw his own face reflected in the mirror. It was a familiar face, but one that he felt uncomfortable looking at. It was no wonder that his own face reflected in the mirror was a relic of the past, no more than a fading memory. It was the face of a young boy, Natsuki Subaru, that was reflected there. Subaru, what is this? The hand that held the mirror trembled, and the pale face of the young boy shook slightly. The other hand, which was holding the mirror, touched the face as if to check it, and fingers that were smaller than he remembered and appropriate for the young face came into view through the mirror. From the look of his face and height, he was about 10 years old. Natsuki Subaru. When I was in elementary school, the mischievous Subaru was taller than the average Japanese, but at the time he must have been short. From that perspective, I wanted to grow up as fast as I could. But, Subaru, what the hell is this? In the mirror, my lips and eyes appear to shake, and it's not just because my hands are shaking. The shaking of the lips and eyes was not only due to the trembling of the hands, but it was also a clear sign that the soul was rejecting the abnormal situation reflected in the eyes. A nightmare, that's what I would call it. If this was simply called rejuvenation, there might be more than a few people who dreamed of it. But unfortunately, Subaru, as a flowering teenager, had nothing to do with such desires. But even if he did, he would probably put a condition that he should choose the right time and place. This was such a ridiculous emergency situation. Subaru, it can't be like this. After a long time, Subaru came back to himself and rushed to the bedroom door. It's not as if the bonus for staying there was rejuvenation. It was natural to think that this was an attack from someone hostile. I had to hurry and share the information with my friends who were staying at the same inn, and find a way out. Subaru, guys, we're in trouble. You may be surprised by the suddenness of this. Oh, I knew it. Subaru's getting smaller too. Subaru, what? The moment he twisted the doorknob, which felt higher and heavier than usual, and opened the door with great force, he was greeted by an unexpected sight, or rather, a sight he should have expected. Outside the bedroom, in the living room where several people were gathered, Subaru was greeted by a girl with a lovely face and a cheerful smile, waving her hand. Her clear blue eyes and golden hair with its characteristic weave, a sunny clarity that could not be mistaken, easily connected the girl to the woman of Subaru's memory. Subaru, me, medium-san, medium, that's right. When I woke up, I was so surprised to see how tiny I was, but I'm relieved to see Subaru-chin is tiny too. Friends one. The one who said this with glee while holding both hands in a Hail Mary was a girl of about 12 or 13 years old with a thin cloth wrapped around her bare skin, who declared herself to be Medium O'Connell. Medium was quite tall for a woman, but she had been caught in the same phenomenon as Subaru, and her size had shrunk considerably. However, she was still half a head taller than the shrunken Subaru. Anyway, Subaru, it's not a situation where you can simply be happy that you found a friend. You, medium. Yikes, I can't lift Louis-chan because I'm too small. Medium desperately tried to pull away the fierce beast that was flailing on her chest. However, her shrunken arms are not enough to stop the savagery of this evil and tyrannical being. As it is, the Natsuki Subaru boy is about to be laid waste to, with no way to do anything about it. Medium, Louis, you can't do that, because Subaru is so tiny. Louis, medium. Yikes, I can't lift Louis-chan because I'm too small. Medium tried desperately to pull the fierce beast off my chest. However, her shrunken arms were not enough to stop the savagery of this evil and tyrannical being. As it is, the boy, Natsuki Subaru, is about to be violated without a choice. Louis, don't. Subaru is going to be crushed. Louis, with a sharp voice of reprimand, the heavy monster on his chest was removed. If you look, Louis, who is kept away from Subaru on his back, somehow has a sad look on her face. He put his hand in her side and lifted her up by her black hair dyed blue. Terita, whose appearance was no different from what Subaru knew. Medium, thank you, Talitha-chan. I wasn't strong enough. Talitha, yes, is Subaru safe at this level? Subaru, oh, yeah, I'm fine. I'm so glad you're okay, Talitha-san. And he took the hand that the medium offered him and raised himself up to look at the back of the room. I am relieved, though I am not sure how I feel about the attitude that I did not try to help at all. I was relieved to see that he did not try to help at all. Subaru, nothing happened to Abel. His appearance, including the fact that he is hiding his face, has not changed since yesterday. I'm not sure if I should call it a blessing or not, but at this point I can't even judge. However, the fact that Abel, whose face we cannot see, is not welcoming this situation can be clearly seen from the grumpy air that comes through his demon face. In fact, proof of his unsettled state of mind, he turned his gaze to Subaru and said, Abel, what an abomination. And with that one word, I've been able to cut through this misery. Subaru, I think I'm rather cute and charming. Subaru's spinal reflex was to spit out a retort. However, Subaru himself knew very well that this was nothing more than a sarcastic remark. The abnormal situation that happened to Subaru and the medium, which didn't seem to affect Abel, Terita, and Louis. If that's the case, the other one is Al. Oh, I'm glad you're paying attention, bro. I was afraid you'd forgotten about me. Subaru, just as I was wondering about the last of my companions staying at the same inn, the answer was offered to me. Eyes wide open, Subaru turned around to see a dark-haired figure coming out of another bedroom. He was a boy around the same age as Subaru, around 10 years old, and his strange appearance caught his attention. At any rate, he was wearing a suitably torn cloth wrapped around his face to hide his appearance. Subaru, Al, right? What's with the mask? Al, size of their helmet doesn't fit anymore. The only thing I could think of was to wrap a cloth around it instead. Don't worry too much about it, Subaru. Even if you tell me not to worry about it, I will still worry about it. Then the boy Al, his face hidden, waved his right hand at Subaru with a flutter because the helmet doesn't have as much area to hide as the helmet he usually wears. Her tied black hair, which is usually hidden, is exposed. It reminded me of the way Abel used to cover his face with a piece of cloth before he wore the demon mask, but Al's way of wrapping his hair was more rough. He looks like a badly made murderer in a movie. Al, I know you can't wear a helmet, but don't you have to cover your face? Al, oh, that's not very polite of you, brother. The helmet is not a sign of pride or drunkenness, it is a sign of complex. You may look like a child, but your brain may be an adult, but that won't make it any less true. It's not like my arms have grown back. That means the scars on my face haven't disappeared either. It's the same for bro, right, Subaru? That's, as he says this, the boy Al shows his left arm. It's still the same, proving that Al's perception of the current situation is correct. Subaru, Al, and the medium were unintentionally rejuvenated, but it wasn't a rewind of time. It was a clear change in their bodies. In response to Al's words, Subaru also flipped up his own dowdy shirt and confirmed that the old scars all over his body had not disappeared. The body of a small child was covered with all sorts of scars that made him want to turn away. The years I spent in this, another world, have not disappeared. I hadn't really thought about the day when I would be relieved by the existence of those scars, but the scars tell me that this is a situation where my limbs have simply shrunk. But more than that, there's no way that such a strange fate could just happen with a shrunken limb. That's right. This means I won't be able to help you with your work. You're too weak and this is a big problem. It's true that it's a big blow to the O'Connell siblings' business, but I should say that there are a lot of immediate problems, as well as long-term business plans. At the moment, Subaru's only problem is that he doesn't have any clothes that fit, which makes him unattractive, but that shouldn't be the case for Al and Medium. Al, you mentioned that your helmet doesn't fit. What about your weapons? Al, you guessed right. I can't wield one of those things with my cute little arms. Medium, it's hard for me to hold both of them. I can manage one. Watch out. Medium drew one of her twin swords from the scabbard at her side, but the blade slipped through her grip and nearly cracked Subaru's knee. The tip of the blade barely grazed Subaru and pierced the floor, but it was horrifying. Medium, wow, Subaru chin. I'm sorry, Subaru. Well, it didn't stab me, so. But it's pretty bad. With a sullen sigh, Medium pulled out the sword stuck in the floor and carefully put it back in its sheath. The arm she had been able to use so freely yesterday was now useless. For Medium, who was expected to play an active role in the war, this is an emergency situation that will shake her foundation. The same can be said for Al, though not in terms of his military prowess. Subaru, this means that Talitha-san is the only one with a legitimate fighting force at the moment, right? Medium, what? I'll do my best even if I'm small. Subaru, I appreciate your spirit, but you don't meet labor standards. Medium's unflappable attitude is nice, but it also requires a realistic view of the situation. With both Al and Medium in this state, the only one who can fight properly is Talitha, and even if she's sure of her abilities, she's not going to be able to do so in enemy territory. Talitha, it's just me. In fact, Talitha herself rightly accepts the pressure. The reason for this is that the roles that could have been shared cannot be divided and must be carried on the shoulders of the two. I apologize to Talitha for that, but, Subaru, it's going to be quite a burden. But what do we do from here? We'll have eyes on us, but do we run from the chaos frame? Al, so, you think it was that sexy castle owner who did this, bro? Subaru, the three of us were the only ones affected. When Al asked, Subaru quietly nodded his head. It goes without saying that Subaru, Al, and Medium have one thing in common. They all went to the castle yesterday as messengers. If that's the case, it's perfectly legitimate to suspect your runner's involvement in the background of these shrunken limbs. Abel, it seems that you are not as distraught as I thought you would be. Abel, who had been quietly thinking about what Subaru and Al were saying, interrupted them. It's true that I was quite distraught right after I woke up, but now that I've run into Al and Medium, who are in the same situation, my agitation has lessened considerably. In a way, the existence of the friends that the Medium mentioned could be said to be the truth. But still, maybe I just missed the right moment to be surprised and panic. Maybe I'll find more inconvenient things to do with this body and then I'll realize the importance of my lost height and weight. Shrinking doesn't make you any less of a man. Adaptability and cleverness are two of my few selling points. I'm going to be scorned for talking more and more, but Subaru doesn't mind saying so back. As expected, Abel's gaze sharpened over the demon's face and he muttered in disgust, "You talk too much." However, he didn't stop there and continued to speak. Abel, you can discard your suspicions about your Mitiga. Your mutation is not the same as the one it controls. Subaru, are you sure about? Abel, as far as I'm concerned, yes. You can decide if it's worth believing. Abel directly denies the suspicion that Subaru had just before. However, it seems that the basis for this denial lies only within Abel. Subaru's mouth curved up in frustration as he was told that he was free to decide whether he believed it or not. However, it didn't take him long to think about it. Subaru, I don't know. I understand. But if it wasn't your runner, then who was it? Abel, perhaps it was Orville Dunklecken who caused it. Subaru, Oswald, that old man from yesterday! Abel mentioned the name of the designer of this situation to Subaru, who swallowed his dissatisfaction and believed his guess. What he told me was the name of the false emperor's companion that he had encountered yesterday at the Red Rury Castle. A diminutive old man who was said to be one of the 9 divine generals. He was the third from the top among the Empire's strongest generals. Naturally, Subaru had expected him to be a man of great ability, but, I didn't expect him to be such a surprising person who can bring about situations that make no sense. I don't know what he's capable of, but you can't deny what happened. I'm not sure what the bottom line is, but I can't deny what happened. If you're just going to fake your appearance, there are other possibilities besides Olbert. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like a hallucination or anything. I've already tried pinching my cheeks and waking up from a series of dreams. There is no possibility of magic or drugs messing with your perceptions and making you hallucinate. The fact that his arms and legs were actually short and he was unable to push against Louis' strength and weight was good evidence. The physical effects on the body, such as the size of Subaru's clothing and Al's helmet, should not be overlooked. Abel must have thought it was hopeless, because he didn't make any special effort to refute Subaru's claim that it was only a practical effect. It's a good thing that I don't have to run away with my tail between my legs. What the hell is he? He is the head of a party that has mastered a special technique called shinobi. Shinobi. Ninja? What is that? Abel asks Subaru with a furrowed brow. You can find a lot of people who have been in the business for a long time. However, the sound of the word shinobi sounded new or strange to Abel. However, to Subaru, it seemed to give him a slight sense of the knowledge of the world that he knew, even if it was only a little, like when he first learned about the Kalaragi dialect and Wahoo architecture. Subaru, this shinobi, do they use ninjutsu, or do they go undercover in the dark night to spy on people or assassinate people? Abel, I've never heard of ninjutsu, but the main function of the shinobi must be your understanding. It's also supposed to be information that's not easily revealed. Subaru, in my hometown, similar workmen are called ninjas. Hey, Al, yeah, a quartet of humorous turtles. Al's answer was a bit off the mark, as he was thinking about the same thing that Subaru was thinking about. It was a character from a popular anime of the past, and Subaru didn't dislike it. Anyway, Abel would not understand if I explained the details, and he seemed to see it as a pointless topic to delve into, so he didn't try to ask me in depth. Instead, Medium rolled her big eyes. Medium, if it was Grandpa who did it yesterday, it could be that. You know, when we escaped from the castle. Subaru, when we ran away. Medium, me and Subaru Chin, we were both poked in the chest. Medium's cry was a bit of a misnomer, but Subaru had an idea of what was going on. It was yesterday, in the middle of a life-threatening battle to escape from the Red Ruri Castle, to fulfill Yorana's nasty conditions. The Subaru had escaped from the thorns of the Kahuma, the false emperor's bodyguard, and attempted to break through the walls of the castle keep to escape, only to be pierced by the blow of the pursuing Orbold. However, the attacks of the 9 divine generals did not cause any damage to Subaru and the others. That was enough for the moment, but it couldn't have been harmless. Subaru, that said, you can't expect something like this. I mean, that explains me and Medium-san. But Al, why are you shrinking? Al, sorry, bro. I had a few run-ins with the old man before I jumped out. It would not be surprising if he had been hit at some point. I figured if the wound didn't kill me, it wouldn't matter. He growled in a low voice, the low voice of a boy before he changed his voice, and muttered to himself as if to blame himself for his lapse. But it was wrong for Al to blame himself. Al had done his part and brought Subaru and Medium back from the brink. The same can be said for Medium. So, it was Subaru who should have known. If he could not be of use in a war situation, he should have been aware of every eventuality. The result of failing to do so was this abomination. As Abel had said, Subaru, I can't let Rem see me like this. If I'm the same size as Berko, Emilia will treat me like I'm younger than her. And I don't think the princess will love me as much as she loves Schultz even if I shrink. And this is a development that will benefit no one. Talitha, I'm surprised that everyone is so calm. I'm still confused. A pale Talitha reveals her innermost thoughts to Subaru and Al as she describes her shrunken body with Louis flopping in her arms. Talitha's bewilderment is palpable as she is the only one left to fight. It's almost as if she feels guilty for having escaped harm. Of course, Talitha is the one who is physically and mentally normal in this situation. Honestly, I think I'm going to start screaming if you don't start talking lightly on my end. No, is that so? Yeah. It's that gross. It's not my young body. My own body is unintentionally being remade. The disintegration of the definition of self is sickening. Subaru is proud of the fact that he has been through a variety of experiences in other worlds. Although the experience of death is the most important, the dense experience of the past year and a half is incomparably richer in color, taste, and density than that of ordinary people. Compared to any of these experiences, the inexpressible disgust that comes with the feeling of being remade is outstanding. Subaru, this is what it feels like to be a victim of lust. The sound of wings echoed in Subaru's mind as he hugged his thin, small shoulders and bit down on his back teeth. It was the sound of the wings of those who had fallen victim to the authority of the Archbishop of the great sin of lust in the city of Water Gates. The memory of the victims whose bodies had been turned into flies and were still waiting to be saved. The tragedy of those who had been transformed into something completely different as living beings easily overcame Subaru's flimsy understanding. The very act of forcing such a feeling is, Subaru? Vicious, I'd say. Abel, who has his arms crossed, chokes up at Subaru's inner thoughts. He met Subaru's unreliable gaze back at him and said Abel. Albert's nickname is the Vicious Master, and as befits his name, he uses the shinobi arts to carry out all kinds of special tasks, vicious and otherwise. Special operations, huh? Does that mean that you have to make the target a baby? What kind of absurd instructions are these? But looking at this mess, I guess it's not impossible. Abel's response to Al, however, had a weight to it that could not be laughed off as a joke. As a matter of fact, since Subaru, Al, and Medium were made young like this, it was impossible to even guess what and to what extent Opal's technique would be able to do. If we can grasp the situation in this way, the thing that makes us most anxious at the moment is, Subaru, this can go back to normal, right? Abel, I can't say for sure, but I think it's reasonable to assume there's a way to get it back. Subaru, what makes you say that? Abel, the only reason for poisoning a person who won't die immediately is to negotiate with them. Hearing Abel's speculation, and the reasoning behind it, Subaru was also quietly convinced. This phenomenon, which I will call infantilization for the sake of convenience, can be likened to the act of poisoning, and the other party's intention to prevent immediate death. If this is a strategy to extract some kind of concession, so there is some kind of contact from the other side. Abel, I'll say it again, I can't say for sure, but Abel looks over at Talitha, who is gasping for air, and tells her that high hopes are poison. And just as Abel was about to continue, the door of the room opened. From outside, there was a knock on the door of the room. Because of the previous conversation, everyone's attention and tension turned to the door. Subaru also stiffened, thinking that it might be a sign of contact from Orbolt, who had brought about the infantilization. But, I'm sorry to disturb you this morning. I am Your Honor Misaga's messenger. The voice that came through the door was, for this moment, a disappointing announcement. Disappointment was the reason why the tension that had been building up loosened sluggishly. On the other hand, the mention of a messenger from Your Honor delayed my understanding that it was a reply to yesterday's letter. In addition to that, I also noticed the owner of the voice that brought the reply. This voice is that of the dear man from yesterday, isn't it? See, it stands a chan. Looks like. I get it. Then you can let me come in and, right? Nodding to Medium, who held up a finger. Subaru asked Abel if he wanted to enter the room. At Subaru's gaze, Abel paused for a moment, then nodded slowly. Seeing this, Subaru turned to go to the door to greet his visitor. Talitha. No, I'm here. Interrupting Subaru, Talitha took the initiative and stepped forward. She left True in Medium's hands and led Subaru and the others back to the door. It must be said that Subaru lacked a sense of danger in this matter. Even if he hadn't thought about it, he couldn't just open the door unprotected. And currently, the shrunken Subaru's vigilance was no different from being defenseless. Danza, I'm sorry to disturb you. I've come to deliver Your Honor-sama's words. As expected, the one who bowed and stepped over the threshold to reveal herself was Danza, a deerstalker girl. Just like yesterday, the kimono-clad girl stepped into the room, caught the gazes of the people who greeted her, and paused. It was unclear what the expressionless girl thought of the unusually large number of children in the room. However, it should be noted that her gaze lingered the longest on a suspicious man wearing a demon mask. Anyway, the girl looked around the room. Danza, what happened to the messengers yesterday? Talitha, they're off to. For a bit. Should I go get them? Danza, no, if you could tell them later. Flickering, Danza's attention was drawn to Abel at the back of the room. She thought he was too good a boy to be a squire, but there was something unexpectedly cute about him, like the way he couldn't take his eyes off something interesting. Nevertheless, the report she brought would have a great impact on the future of Subaru and the others. With quiet tension, they waited for Danza's words. And then Danza, after reading the letter, Your Honor-sama will formally reply. Therefore, I would like you all to report to the Red Rory Castle. Subaru, you've read. Subaru was self-consciously relieved when Danza bowed and said so. It may have been rude, but even after all that, he suspected that it was not impossible that Your Honor might have torn up the letter on a whim. It was the same lack of security as dealing with a high-strung cat or Priscilla. If you can't find a precise strategy, that's the impression you get. Al, I don't deny that princesses are hard to deal with, but you have to know what you're doing. No, I'm not too sure about that either. Reading Subaru's expression, Al tried to defend Priscilla, but gave up halfway through. It's a sign that he, too, is having a hard time dealing with Priscilla, whom he has known for a long time. Anyway, I'm relieved that one side of the impending situation seems to be going smoothly. With this, the only major problem at hand is the infantilization of Subaru and the others. Danza, I hope that the lord who wrote the letter and all the messengers from yesterday will come to the castle tower. Geez, Danza. What? Hearing the unintentional moan that spilled out, Danza lowered her round eyebrows and tilted her head, in order not to let her know how upset he was. Subaru smiled amiably and shook his head. Nothing, forcing Danza's suspicion to be misplaced. Whether she was satisfied or not, Danza returned to the angle of her tilted head and said, Danza, I will be waiting for you at the Red Rory Castle when the fire-hour bell rings. I understand the details. It is a great matter. You may leave. Danza, yes, excuse me. The time specified. The bell of the fire hour could be taken to mean roughly noon. After informing of the meeting, Danza bowed to her and turned away to leave the room. Excuse me, Subaru called out to her. Danza, yes, what is it? Subaru, I just want to make sure, but the main person invited is the person who wrote the letter, and the messenger from yesterday is an extra, right? In other words, if the messenger is unable to attend for various reasons, Danza, Your Honor-sama says to invite the messengers as well. Subaru, Danza, I hope that in this magical city, you will not fail to follow Your Honor-sama's words. Danza's voice was plain, but it was a reminder of his absolute and unshakable will. Leaving that behind, he watched the departing messenger girl and closed the door. After doing that, Subaru took a deep breath and turned around. And then Subaru, do you think we, in this state, meet the conditions she just mentioned? He stretched out his changed arms and asked the question.